Hello and welcome. This presentation is about Easter and the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. To the world in general, alongside Christmas, Easter is regarded as one of the most important annual Christian festivals, commemorating the death and resurrection of Christ. A whole range of traditional events and practices mark the lead up to and observance of this festival. But some important questions arise about this event. Is this really a Christian observance? Is the Christian really required to observe this or any other so-called festival? Is the origin of Easter based on the Bible and Christian teaching or something else? The Roman Catholic and other mainstream church organizations place a great emphasis on Easter as an essential event on the Christian calendar. However, as we shall see, it is evident that Easter is also enshrined in many non-Christian practices. The annual pagan festival honouring Ishtar, the goddess of fertility, goes back to ancient times in Mesopotamia, in particular as part of the Babylonian religious system. We shall see that this pagan observance has a lot in common with what many people identify as Easter in professing Christendom today. Even the names Ishtar and Easter share a similarity in composition, as well as a common origin, based on traditional religious teachings handed down many centuries before Christianity. Some of the Easter traditions that have developed in Roman Catholicism have more in common with pagan ritual and belief than any basis in the Bible. The following are some examples. Here we see eggs dyed red, adorned with the sign of the cross. On the right, the painted eggs are under the embrace of the Easter bunny, a subject that we will come to shortly. It is not uncommon to see eggs with religious icons, mostly depicting Mary and the child Jesus. Others depict the suffering Christ. This Fabergé egg is one of several exhibited in the Vatican Museum. The modern Easter egg, especially the chocolate variety, is perhaps one of the most obvious associations with Easter. This has absolutely no connection with Christ at all. However, the Easter egg is deeply entrenched in pagan culture, having an ancient origin in Babylon and the myths that provided the foundation for Babylonian religious beliefs. The Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 9, page 309, states the following: "The egg was a sacred symbol among the Babylonians. They believed an old fable about an egg of wondrous size which was supposed to have fallen from heaven into the Euphrates River. From this marvellous egg, according to the ancient story, the goddess Ishtar, also known as Semiramis, was hatched, and so the egg came to symbolise the goddess Ishtar, also known as Easter." The goddess Ishtar has a long history. Revered by the ancient Babylonians, she represented both fertility and war. She is often depicted holding a rabbit, the latter known for reproductive prowess. We note the common saying even used today, breeding like rabbits. The Ishtar Gate is reconstructed in the Berlin Museum in Germany and honours the goddess. This was the main gate into the ancient city of Babylon, a city representing the very antithesis of the true and only God, the God of the Bible, and the true message of Christianity. The same Ishtar was also known by many as the Queen of the Night, as shown in the exhibits that can be seen today in the British Museum in London. From Babylon, the worship of the goddess figure migrated to Egypt as Isis, then into Israel as Ashtaroth, resulting in the downfall of Israel. In Greece, she was known as Artemis, depicted as a huntress. The same goddess was known as Diana to the Romans. She became the principal idol in the city of Ephesus. The Anglo-Saxons adopted the same fertility goddess and called her Ishtar, a word that has developed into the English word Easter, and the same word forms the name given to the female hormone, estrogen. The Roman Catholic Church has assimilated this same goddess, transforming her identity from the original Ishtar of Babylon into the Virgin Mary, whom they refer to as the Mother of God, a term completely incompatible with the Bible, for God has no mother or father, he is eternal and self-existing. The Encyclopaedia Britannica 14th edition, volume 2, page 859 comments on Easter as follows. There is no indication of the observance of the Easter festival in the New Testament or in the writings of the Apostolic Fathers. The sanctity of the special times was an idea absent from the minds of the first Christians. The International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, Volume 2, page 889, comments on Easter as follows. There is no trace of Easter celebrations in the New Testament. The King James Bible mentions the word Easter on one occasion. In Acts 12 and verse 4 we read the following. Now about that time Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James the brother of John with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison, and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. In this instance, the word Easter has been translated from the original Greek word Pascha. Strong's Greek dictionary correctly renders this word as Passover. Since Herod was a Jew, it would be more appropriate to render the word Pascha as Passover, as the Jews do not observe Easter. This was probably included by the English translators to align with traditional religious thinking prevalent at the time of translation. Nominal Christianity centers Easter celebrations around the death and resurrection of Jesus. Jesus clearly stated exactly how his death and resurrection would take place, an exact fulfillment of the sign of the prophet Jonah. We read in Matthew 12 and verse 40, For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The emphasis twice mentioned was 3 days and 3 nights. This means 3 24-hour days. In the Hebrew or Jewish calendar, a day is defined as 12 hours and a night as 12 hours. Jesus emphasized days and nights to clearly signify 3 24-hour periods. Roman Catholic teaching on the resurrection is that Jesus was crucified at the 9th hour, which is 3 p.m. on Friday, so-called Good Friday. He was buried on Friday p.m. He rose again on Sunday at dawn. Commencing from Friday p.m. to Saturday p.m., we have 1 day and 1 night. From Saturday p.m. to Sunday morning is 1 night. This gives a total of 1 day and 2 nights. So we see that according to this teaching, 2 days and 1 night are missing. When we examine the total time according to official Roman Catholic doctrine, it simply does not measure up to the 3 days and 3 nights as stated by Jesus. So what is the real timing? We read in the Gospel of Mark chapter 16 verses 2 to 7. And very early in the morning the first day of the week they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. And when they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. And he saith unto them, Be not affrighted, you seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen, he is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way, tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall you see him, as he said unto you. So we know that Jesus had already risen before dawn, that is the rising of the sun, on the first day of the week, that is the Sunday. In the Hebrew or Jewish calendar, before sunrise, that is before dawn, was considered part of what we would now class as the previous night. The Jewish day commenced at 6 a.m. So Jesus rose on what would have been considered then as the Saturday night. This would mean that Jesus was most likely actually crucified and buried on Wednesday evening. In the light of this information, let's examine the 3 days and 3 nights further. We read a parallel account in the Gospel of John chapter 20 verses 1 to 2. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth, and cometh to Simon Peter, and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and saith unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. So we see that even before dawn, Jesus was no longer in the grave. Again, this would place the actual resurrection prior to the beginning of the first day of the week. It would have taken place on the Saturday and not the Sunday. So let's now look at the timeline according to the Bible record. Jesus was crucified at the 9th hour, that's 3 p.m. on Wednesday. This would mean that he was buried sometime on Wednesday p.m. That week there was an additional Sabbath, a high Sabbath, on the Thursday. So Jesus would definitely have been buried in advance of that, as it was unlawful to touch a dead body on the Sabbath. Now, Wednesday p.m. to Thursday p.m. on the high Sabbath is 1 day and 1 night. Thursday p.m. to Friday p.m. totals 2 days and 2 nights. Friday p.m. to Saturday p.m., the regular Sabbath, gives a total of 3 days and 3 nights. This would be correct, seeing Jesus had already risen before dawn on the Sunday. Moreover, in Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy, recorded in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27, Messiah would be cut off in the midst of the week. We know that this primarily refers to the midst of the week of 7 years, that is, after 3.5 years. However, it may well also be significant that Jesus was actually cut off in the midst, the very middle of the normal week of 7 days, namely on the Wednesday. In any case, we can conclude that Roman Catholic and other traditional teachings on the timing of the resurrection and its association with a Friday crucifixion and resurrection on Easter Sunday morning are completely chronologically wrong. Dawn religious ceremonies have an ancient pagan background. The earliest go back to the Sumerians in Mesopotamia, subsequently adopted by the Babylonians. The cult of the sun disk also became a major religious movement in ancient Egypt and was known as the Aten. This cultic practice continues today, for example in the Japanese national religion of Shinto, in which many temples and shrines are dedicated to the rising sun, with ceremonies taking place at dawn. Indeed, the national symbol for Japan is the sun, and in particular, the rising sun. Veneration of the sun has also become a major part of Roman Catholic practice. The monstrance, which is an ornamental sunburst image, is central to the celebration of the Catholic Mass, especially on Easter Sunday when dawn services are held, with the highlight being the adoration, that is the worship, of the Blessed Sacrament of the Host. The host is the wafer, resembling the sun disk as previously used in ancient Babylon and Egypt, which Roman Catholics believe is transformed into the actual body of Christ by the officiating priest. This is 0% Christian and 100% pagan and Antichrist. In the Old Testament, God showed the prophet Ezekiel the abominable practices being carried out by the idolatrous Judahites who had turned away from God. They turned their back on God and worshipped towards the sun, copying the idolatry of the Babylonians. We read in Ezekiel 8 and verse 16, "And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshipped the sun toward the east." Significantly, they turned to the east. That is, this was in effect Easter worship. What made this more of an effrontery to the Lord was that they'd done this in the inner court of God's temple. The Lord would eventually judge these idolaters by sending the Babylonians, whose worship they were copying, to destroy the city of Jerusalem and the temple in 586 BC, and to carry away the people of Judah to the city of Babylon. Their idolatry resulted in their demise, an object lesson not to be forgotten in this 21st century. History reveals that the observance of Easter as a so-called Christian festival was instigated by the Roman Emperor Constantine at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, almost 300 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. The original early church never observed any such events. In effect, this was a politico-religious move to combine what was long-established traditional pagan Roman practice with what would become Roman Catholicism. However, we shall see how the Roman Catholic calendar has become aligned with the festivals and rituals of the pagan Wiccan calendar. The pagan Wiccan and the Roman Catholic calendars bear a remarkable correspondence in their annual festivals, and they both follow the appearance of the sun as the solar deity. Starting from the 12 o'clock position on the diagram and moving clockwise, it starts with Yule, the winter solstice on the Wiccan calendar, which Catholicism has simply translated into Christmas. Breed or midwinter corresponds to St. Valentine's Day. Ostara, which marks the spring equinox, simply becomes Easter. Beltane or May Day corresponds to the Catholic crowning of Mary as the Queen of Heaven, the same title as the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. Midsummer or the summer solstice, Liha, becomes St. John's Day. The pagan Lammas or Lunusa becomes Harvest Festival. Mabon, which takes place at mid-autumn or the autumnal equinox, becomes Michaelmas, and Halloween, that is the hallowed evening which honours the souls of the dead, becomes All Souls' Day. And so we have a complete pagan year dominated by anti-Christian observances and the corresponding observances in the Roman Catholic calendar. There is absolutely no association with Christ and his church in any of these festivals. The Apostle Paul issued a warning to the members of the early church of the need to reject the observance of special days, months, and times of the year. We read in Galatians chapter 4, verses 8 to 11. Howbeit then, when ye knew not God, you did service unto them which by nature are no gods. But now after that you have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn you again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto you desire again to be in bondage? You observe days and months and times and years. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labour in vain. Such religious observances are merely traditions. For the genuine Christian, every day belongs to the Lord. The true Christian is filled with the Holy Spirit and is called upon to worship God daily, in spirit and in truth.